I thought that I was the greatest debtor to divine grace, and would sing the loudest to its praise. But when I came down out of the pulpit, there was a venerable woman who said to me, "You made a blunder in your sermon this evening." I said, "I dare say I made a dozen, good soul." "But what was that particular one?" "Why, you said that you would sing the loudest because you owed most to divine grace. You are but a lad. You do not owe half as much to grace as I do at 80 years of age. I owe more to grace than you, and I will not let you sing the loudest." I found that there was a general conspiracy among the friends that night to put me in the background, and that is where I meant to be, and wish to be. That is where those who sing the loudest long to be, to take the lowest place, and praise most the grace of God in so doing. In The Sword and the Trowel for 1869, Mr. Spurgeon turned to good account a popular superstition. He was too humble to apply to himself the closing sentences in the following paragraph, but all who read it must see how exactly it describes the abiding influence of his long and gracious ministry. He wrote, "Hone, in his yearbook, gives a letter from a correspondent in Raleigh, Nottinghamshire, which states that many centuries since, the church and a whole village were swallowed up by an earthquake. Many villages and towns have certainly shared a similar fate, and we have never heard of them more. The times have been when the brains were out, the man would die. But at Raleigh, they say, the old church bells still ring at Christmas time, deep, deep in earth, and that it was a Christmas morning custom for the people to go out into the valley and put their ears to the ground to listen to the mysterious chimes of the subterranean temple. This is sheer superstition, but how it illustrates the truth that those preachers whose voices were clear and mighty for truth during life continue to preach in their graves. Being dead, they yet speak. And whether men put their ears to their tombs or not, they cannot but hear them." In the last sermon but one that Mr. Spurgeon ever revised, that remarkable discourse upon the text, "I shall not die but live, and declare the works of the Lord," he uttered these words, which have already been to a large extent fulfilled with regard to himself. Often the death of a man is a kind of new birth to him. When he himself is gone physically, he spiritually survives, and from his grave there shoots up a tree of life whose leaves heal nations. O worker for God, death cannot touch thy sacred mission. Be thou content to die, if the truth shall live the better because thou diest. Be thou content to die, because death may be to thee the enlargement of thine influence. Good men die as dies the seed corn, which thereby abideth not alone. When saints are apparently laid in the earth, they quit the earth and rise and mount to heaven gate and enter into immortality. No, when the sepulchre receives this mortal frame, we shall not die, but live. The portrait, which forms the frontispiece to this volume, has never before, so far as I know, been published. It was a lover's gift to the one who was very soon to become his bride, and I recall how, in the glamour of love's young dream, I used to gaze on the sweet boyish face and think no angel could look half so lovely. Afterwards, the picture was enshrined in a massive oaken frame, and it occupied the place of honour on the walls of the house in the New Kent Road, where we began our life's journey together and founded our first home. Many a time, during my husband's long absences, when fulfilling his almost ceaseless preaching engagements, has this portrait comforted me. Its expression of calm, confident faith strengthened my heart, and I used to think the upraised finger pointed to the source whence I must draw consolation in my loneliness. Something of the same soothing and sacred influence steals over me as I look at it now with tear-filled eyes. It speaks to me, even as it did in those days of long ago, and it says, "Do not fear, my beloved. God is taking care of us both. And though we are still separated for a little while, we shall meet again at home by and by." There have been many representations of my dear husband during the intervening years. The young face changed into that of a strong, energetic man. Then it grew into the semblance of one who knew sorrow and suffering. And again, it changed into the grave and noble features which we remember best, because his departure has stamped them forever on the tablet of our loving heart. Throughout them all can be traced the sweet humility, the gentle kindness, the mighty faith in God, which characterized his glorious and blameless life. But I think it is reserved to this early portrait to depict the intense love and unfailing devotion to his master, which was the secret of his power both with God and man. In the early portion of this present volume, Mr. Spurgeon's reminiscences of his life at Stambourne are given at considerable length, partly because they present such a charming picture of this happy childhood at his grandfather's, but also because they are of special value to his many friends from the fact that this was the literary work upon which he was engaged just before his long and terrible illness in 1891. They also contain his inimitable description of the interest taken in him in his boyhood by Mr. Knill when at Stambourne, the remarkable prophecy uttered by that godly man over the head of the little 10-year-old lad, its literal fulfillment, and the influence of the incident itself and the circumstances that followed it upon the whole of his after history.